and we're back with the final Mission Impossible episode review from the original series, Season 7, Episode 22, Imitation. This one starts at a building where an armored truck is loaded up. The truck is surrounded by cars, and thieves cleverly knock out the guards and take the loot from the truck, put it in another car where a glamorously dressed woman named Jenna Cole admires the jewels her gang just stole. Jim gets instructions in an office in what is recycled footage from episode 18, The Fighter. I checked. Jim is wearing the same clothes and the same tie. It's just different pictures shown. The mission. What we saw were the Martinsburg crown jewels, worth over $10 million. The jewels are supposed to go on display at the UN in 3 days, and the IMF must retrieve them. Based only on the suspicion, the only lead they have is that Jenna Cole was involved. We get an apartment scene with no Casey, but a guest agent named Duval, who is an expert at sleight of hand, and a duplicate set of the jewels, among other things. We're told the Martinsburg government won't assist the IMF in any way, and the IMF must be wary of Martinsburg Consulate Security Chief Dunson, who secretly works with Jenna Cole. Barney pulls up to Jenna's club where a group of people are totally grooving out. He tells the bartender that his name is Charlie Kenyon, and he was cellmates in prison with Jenna's little brother who recently died, and he has a letter for her. Barney asks to borrow $1,000 and uses a very cool device to detect the combination on Jenna's safe. Later, Barney sneaks into Jenna's office and cleans out the rest of her cash, while she talks to her buyer Stevens about finalizing their deal for the jewels. Stevens has already paid $1 million, and there will be $2 million more on delivery. He leaves the safe open, and Jenna readily discovers the theft. Barney's fingerprints are found, so she dispatches her men to go get her money back. Meanwhile, Willie and Duval take out Jenna's jewel expert Carter near the elevator in his building with the usual knockout ring, and Duval later dons a Carter mask. Jenna's men, Boomer and Eddie, go to Barney's rented room and find floor plans of the Martinsburg consulate, plus a whole bunch of Barney's gadgets. As they leave, they overhear Jim asking the desk clerk for Kenyon, so Eddie follows him. Willie sends a coded message to the consulate, indicating that the real jewels are actually on their way now. Boomer and Jenna look through the stuff that was found and figure that Barney's planning to steal the jewels, not knowing that they're already gone. Boomer goes to an electronics store noted on the plans, but finds the owner's been shot, staged by the IMF. Eddie finds Jim, who's taking to see Jenna, and Jim says that Kenyon owes him $200,000 and has promised to pay him this week, somehow. Dunson sends Jenna a message about Willie's message that the real jewels are due to arrive. Eddie tracks Jim back to a jeweler's office. She takes a stone to Duval as Carter for analysis, wondering what's going on, and he switches it quickly for one from the IMF set, showing them that it is a fake, increasing Jenna's frustration. Barney returns to his room and goes through the motions of figuring out what happened, and suddenly finds Eddie's gun in his face. He's brought back to Jenna's office and says she's figured out his angle to heist the jewels. And since she's financing the operation, she figures they're partners. Willie comes to the consulate as the special courier carrying the real jewels and saying that a security leak was suspected all along. The IMF jewels are put in the consulate vault where a sentry passes by every 15 minutes. Willie puts a device over the vault outer door lock as he leaves. Meanwhile, Jenna and Barney finalize their plan. And after meeting with Stevens, Boomer advises Jenna that relying on Barney is very risky, as Dunson might have to kill him if he's caught so as not to blow his cover. But she feels there's no other choice. Boomer takes Barney to the consulate that night, and he gets into the building by cracking a gate using thermite. The sentry makes his rounds to the vault, and Dunson watches him leave as Barney arrives at the vault, setting up his equipment, while Dunson makes sure his gun is loaded and ready in case Barney fails. The sentry arrives a few minutes early. Dunson runs interference for a moment, allowing Barney to at least get into the main vault to avoid being seen by the sentry, and the heist proceeds without further incident. Jenna and Barney celebrate their victory, and Barney calls Jim, saying he's got the jewels and wants to settle his debt. Jenna says she has a buyer who will pay more than Jim will, but Barney says they had a deal and wants to stick to it, despite her claim that she really cares about him and wants him to stick around. They do share a drink before heading out, and Boomer takes the opportunity to switch the jewel cases, giving Barney the one from the original heist. Barney leaves with it, and Boomer confirms the switch. Barney will be a dead man soon. Barney heads out and joins the IMF in their waiting van, while Stevens arrives with his people to buy the jewels from the second heist. His expert determines, of course, that these jewels are fakes, and Stevens demands his $1 million back. Jenna proclaims that there's just been a mistake and asks for some more time to figure out what happened, as police move in and corral all the bad guys. Barney says he wants to go out and have a look, and Jenna gives him a faint smile as she does her perp walk. Mission accomplished. I'm going to give this episode a grade of a D+. Some notes about the episode. This one was filmed in mid-season while Linda Day George was on maternity leave. This was right in the middle, actually, of Barbara Anderson's episodes. Some of them were filmed before, some of them were filmed after. I'm guessing that this was done when she was unavailable for a while. Frankly, that's okay, as there really wouldn't have been much for her to do here. Of the team members that are present, the teamwork is good. The usual stuff. As far as that goes, nothing wrong there. Interesting side note, Barbara McNair played the wife of Sidney Poitier in the Mr. Tibbs movies. It was actually a trilogy. The one that I think is most well known is one that says, "They Call Me Mr. Tibbs," and they made In the Heat of the Night, and that was also one of the movie's names. And they made a whole series out of that later on. Interestingly, with MI guest star Carol O'Connor from back in season 1, The Trial. The cast of those Mr. Tibbs movies, interestingly, is also like an Mission Impossible roll call. Martin Landau was a featured actor in one of them. Lee Grant, Anthony Zerbe, Ed Asner, Gerald O'Loughlin, and David Shiner. The list goes on. And Barbara McNair later, left acting in favor of singing, which obviously was a passion of hers as well. Let's start with the good. The best thing about this episode, of course, is Barbara McNair. Despite the rather minimalist production, obviously, at this point, the producers didn't have a whole lot of money to use. Not as much as probably they were used to. They still managed to find a really glamorous wardrobe for Ms. McNair, which is perfect for her role. She's very, very believable as Jenna Cole. Her presence on screen is excellent. I totally buy her in every way, and she is a real quality guest star. It's great to see a female villain or antagonist on the show. She's the third of 3 and the final one for this season and for the series. The best part of this episode is just a 5-second snippet from the end, which I'm going to put in right here. I love this. There's that faint hint of a smile. There's something there. I cannot put into words all that look means, but I can feel it. And what a really, really nice touch. Whether it's something that Barbara McNair just came up with herself and kind of ad-libbed, or whether she was directed to do it, however it is, it really comes off perfectly. It's one of those things that I can just kind of feel that there's so much going on there. Kind of, gee, I really, really wish that, things were different. And, she obviously has feelings for Barney's character. Sad that she got caught, realizes that it's just part of the game and she got played and well done, and all of those things put into one, which is really, really nice. It very, very much reminds me, I'm sure there are other examples of this as well, but there was a moment like this in season 1 in the episode called The Reluctant Dragon, where Roland Hand, Martin Landau, is in a scene with John Colicos as the antagonist of the episode. And it's a scene where John Colicos' character, Jankowski, gets killed, takes a shot. And, they've had conversations about how, even though they're kind of on opposite sides, they just wish that things were better. And I commented in that episode that, if circumstances were different, these two guys would go out and have drinks and have a really, really good time and really enjoy these others' company. And as, Yankowski is dying, Landau kind of comforts him, puts his hand over the wound and just gives him a look, which is so meaningful, and I commented, I'm sure in that episode, that the look, it kind of conveys this whole thing. I don't hate you, buddy. I'm sorry that this happened. I wish things were different, and I'm sure you do too. And when an actor or actress can put all of that feeling into a look, I love that. And that's really, really good here. Can't say enough good things about this. If you want to end this series on a note, this is a really good note to end it on, in my opinion. I want to also mention something good that I like. The accuracy about the diamond testing, as a bit of a science nerd. Clever fakes can actually be detected using mineral oil the way that it was shown here. Obviously, it makes sense to have a jeweler do it because they know what to look for. But apparently, for very, very clever fakes, you put them in mineral oil and it makes them kind of dull. Whereas a real diamond, despite being covered in mineral oil, will still be shiny. So good on the writers and producers for making that accurate. Moving on to some things that are a little bit kind of weird or a little bit meh. The vault heist here, I'd say it's a little bit above average, but not by much. It's a scene that we've seen played out many times before. There's the extra little wrinkle of the Sentry arriving early, and we have this guy Dunson, who's a little bit of a wild card as far as it goes. He's obviously working with Jenna Cole, but wants to guard his position as a pretty high-ranking official in the consulate, so he's willing to shoot Barney and call the whole thing off if he has to. Unfortunately, there's not really much there. It is a wild card, but it's only a very brief wild card, and it doesn't really add much. Also, some things that were kind of, neither here nor there. In the apartment scene, Duval is shown making a jewel disappear, and I commented in the recap that he seems to obviously be very adept at sleight of hand, implying that this is something that's going to be of use later. But that really doesn't come into play. Duval just basically goes, when Jenna Cole comes to visit him, he goes into a drawer, pulls out the mineral oil, also pulls a switcheroo with the jewel that she has, but he doesn't really use the sleight of hand. So that was kind of weird. Like, why do that? Also, the IMF stage, the electronics shop owner being shot when Boomer goes to investigate that. And that implies that Barney actually stole the equipment that he's using or going to use for the heist and didn't actually use Jenna's cash. But somehow or other, this is kind of completely glossed over too. Jenna mentions it, and they discuss it very, very briefly, but it just kind of goes nowhere. I found those things to be a little bit weird. And that kind of leads me into the things that I would put in the bad category. As usual, when we have those kind of little things that do get glossed over that don't make sense, it usually means a little bit of an inattention to detail on the part of the writers and the producers. This episode is a victim of being the end episode, but it really wasn't the end in terms of filming, as I mentioned. But it's still stuck in season 7, where pretty much everything has all been played out in terms of the series. Opening scene is basically a copy of what we saw earlier in the season in the episode Underground, with guys, able to get into a car or a truck by blowing open the doors and using gas to, knock out the people in the car. The safe cracking gadgets, we saw that from the puppet. So, again, everything is kind of derivative of things that have happened in the past. More to the point of what's bad about the episode. The Jenna Cole character. I have to put her definitely in the lame category. She's manipulatable and she's predictable. And unfortunately, over the course of the episode, she kind of schmuckifies herself. I think that that is really a shame. I think that that is due to gender stereotyping, which is very, very regrettable. It happened a lot. It happens today, obviously, on TV and in movies. It was more prevalent 50 years ago. I didn't like that. As usual in episodes like this, the romantic subplot gets overshadowed by the who's playing who thing. And and I've mentioned before that it almost becomes a little bit of a distraction, and the writers often don't know whether they want to go in this direction and play that up or stick with the story and play that up. In this particular case, it's not really played up so much until the end. So until then, it's not a huge detriment. I was kind of turned off and bothered by the scene towards the end where Jenna Cole starts to show that she's a bit lovesick for Barney. Not in and of itself. There's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, everybody has feelings. But I just feel that it was just done as part, as I mentioned, as kind of a gender stereotype in a traditional feminine sense. Where, of course the woman is going to fall in love with the man, right? Because that's how the story always goes. I didn't like that. I think it killed the vibe that we're supposed to get from Jenna Cole, and I would have rather seen her be a stronger character. When she has her dialogue afterwards with Boomer and confirms that, okay, you gave him the fakes, right? They're going to kill him, right? It seems clear that the producers wanted to try and have her talk a strong game, but the looks on her face, they kind of directed her to demonstrate her mixed emotions. Barbara McNair, the actress, does it tremendously well. This is not a reflection on her. I've had to say that a lot this season. It is not a reflection on her, but it's not good for the Jenna character. I would have liked to seen her show more strength, and I think it would have made for a better episode, and this episode had the potential for that. As a consideration, when I was trying to look for my grade, I tried to compare it to some other episodes and see, okay, do I like it more than this? Do I think it's better than this? That sort of thing. And the one that I came across, I didn't have to go back that far. Think back a few episodes ago to Boomerang, where we had Eve Vale, played by Lorraine Stevens. In that episode, I think that Lorraine Stevens, either her acting, but probably more the direction in that episode, she was allowed to make it very, very clear, despite, the romantic overtones, that she was just playing the game, and the romantic thing was just part of the whole game for her. Here, it's a little bit ambiguous at best. I think I'm being a little bit generous when I say that. And I can understand why the directors and producers would want to go in that direction, but I don't agree with it. I would have preferred that Barbara McNair have been allowed to be a little bit more like Lorraine Stevens was in that episode. I think it would have been better that way. I could be wrong, but I would have very much preferred that. And I think that is about it. And now we come to it, and I have realized that that's it. That is the end of the reviews for the original series. I am going to go back and I am going to fix up many of the ones that I have done before. The ones where the video and audio, matching just didn't come out that well. Some other things that I have noted. I am going to incorporate comments that I've heard from some of you out there. I would really, really love to hear more. I don't know how quickly I'm going to be able to get back to everything. I want to go back and fix up things now that I've learned so much in the way that YouTube works and how video editing software works and all of that sort of thing. I really would like to make the earlier reviews better and add to them. That is going to take some time. I'm absolutely shocked that I was able to get all of the reviews from the original series done in the matter of a calendar year. That is really, really surprising to me. I didn't think I would be able to pull that off, but I did, because wow, this is a great series, and boy, this has been a fantastic ride. I definitely will, as I think I've alluded to in some of the other reviews, I will get to the revival series. I am very, very, very much looking forward to that. I really, really am. Part of me wants to kind of completely jump into it and start doing that, but I do think it's worth it for me to take some time and go back over, at least start going back over some of the earlier reviews, fix them up a little bit, also kind of make some shorter videos of some top 10 lists and things like that. Hopefully that will generate some more comments and some more feedback, which I really, really value from all of the fans out there. Because, I obviously there are things that I don't see, and I would love to hear what other people think. I mentioned that in the end of every episode, I think. And so I'm going to end this one the way that I always do. Please like this episode review. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please leave your comments. And in the comments for this or any other episodes, I would love to hear your ideas of some lists that I can make for some shorter videos. Hopefully that will generate some more ideas and comments and feedback from people, which I would really love to get. Just some ideas that I've already come up with, which I'm thinking about. Most Anvilicious episodes. Best wildcard characters. Best team exits. Most impossible missions. And of course, I want to do a full ranking of episodes 1 through 163. Counting multi-parters is one episode. You got 163 individual episodes or stories in total. And I definitely do want to do a full ranking. I might break that up just in terms of grade. I'll do the Fs and then move on to the D- and so forth, just to kind of put them in more digestible chunks, perhaps. We'll have to see how that goes. Anyway, this is not the end. I see this as a new beginning, in a sense, and I'm very, very much looking forward to it. I want to thank all of you again who have watched these reviews. There's a lot of content here. I think back on the amount of time that I have put into this, and I have enjoyed every minute of it, and I hope I have provided some enjoyment to the rest of the fans out there. Thank you guys all again, and I will see you again very, very soon with whatever continuation we decide to go with.